You have 4 businesses. How you've managed to keep all of that straight?
Fortunately, all my businesses are around that real estate industry, so they integrate really well. It's not what you say yes to, it's really what you say no to and chasing the right thing. In order for me to really build out what I built out so far, is I just have to be very purposeful with what I'm doing every day. My road to 100 million, it's very clear for me, and I use that as a filter to what I do every single day. And that's really the only way I can run the businesses so efficiently.
Welcome to the Road to 100 podcast, a show for those of you who are out there building empires.
We're your hosts, Cody Littlewood and Pasha Esfandiari. Together, we'll embark on the journey to the coveted 100 million mark, as well as striving for excellence in every aspect of our lives. Here at the Road to 100, we believe that true success goes beyond financial prosperity.
That's why we bring you insightful conversations with top entrepreneurs and trailblazers who share their unfiltered experiences in building wealth, as well as cultivating fulfilling relationships and maintaining optimal health.
This podcast is perfect for ambitious entrepreneurs, health enthusiasts, and anyone seeking genuine and transformative insights from those who dare to go all out.
Welcome to the Road to 100, and we will see you at the finish line. Guys, we have another incredible episode by somebody who truly inspired me to even get into this podcasting and force me in front of people. But his name is Daniel Del Real. He's incredible. I mean, the guy is also just a stud. So I hope you're watching this on YouTube. But he is a first-generation American and a team leader for Daniel Del Real Group. He is the second-ranked highest producing large team in California by units. And he started his real estate career by 19 years old. There's a lot to really unpack here. But, another really important thing is he's also served in the United States Air Force for 4 years. But what I truly admire about you most, man, is not only are you just incredible to hang out with, you are just systematically going through life in such a profound, determined, and inspiring way that it's like naturally leaders and other men just gravitate to you as a leader. And so this is why we're really happy to have you on here. I've learned a lot about you. And so really just kind of excited to jump in. So Daniel, thanks for being on the show. And let's just talk about you. Who the hell are you? So these people can understand how much I love you.
Well, thanks, brother. Thanks for the intro. And it's funny, man, when you hang around with guys that are purpose led, you see them walking with purpose, and it's like you just move out of the way, right? And then just things just happen. Relationship just happens. Conversations just happen, which is amazing. Well, I am a product of an immigrant father and mother. My parents came here when they were 10, 11, 12 years old, immigrants, not knowing many people here other than having some family here. And so, I've one of 5 kids and served some time in the military. Air Force, did 4 years in that. That's my wife wasn't in service, but her brother was my partner. I was a police officer in the Air Force, and got married to my wife 15 years ago. We've been together for 20 years. She's a small town girl from South Dakota. We have 3 kids. After 4 years in the Air Force, I took off the uniform and put on the real estate uniform and just hit the floor running. It was almost, I feel it was a disadvantage to other people because at that point we were going through the Iraqi war and there wasn't a time that we had off. There was just a time that the government said we didn't have to wear that uniform. So when I got into the real estate industry, I remember calling my sergeant and a couple of the guys that I was in the military with, and I'm like, man, I don't know what civilians do all day, but they move way too slow. We're just used to getting shit done and working, 365 days out of the year. I mean, it was your life and service, right? So, initially I was going to be a cop. My degree's in criminal justice, and I had a job lined up at Santa Clara PD. My mom, considering she didn't get an education higher than the 3rd or 4th grade, was wise enough to invest in real estate and have relationships with brokers. So, she had a son that was getting out of service and another son that was in the middle of their second tour to Fallujah. And so she was just tired of being mortified of her kids. So she's like, Daniel, I know you want to be a cop. I know you want to go work at Santa Clara PD, but I think you should have a conversation with my real estate broker. And the guy pulled up in a nice black Mercedes and a nice suit and said, hey, man, you should give this real estate gig a shot. And I pulled into town on a Thursday. I started real estate school on a Saturday. I already had some credits because of my degree. And I figured I'd be like the Harrison Ford in Hollywood Undercover, where I'd be kicking doors down and still selling real estate, And 20 years later, I operate a highly successful and efficient and effective team in California. We help a lot of families here, and I've been able to build a nice brand, which also has allowed me to invest in real estate and achieve the freedom that I have today, man.
Yeah, you have about 150 rental units on your own, and then 48 different streams of income. I mean, you have systemly built out this enormous amount of freedom in your life. And one thing I do know about you, though, is that you still choose to work, you still choose to lead with your team. I mean, you're always there. You've told me a little bit about yourself, so I just want to put it on air, is that you are in there mentoring in the day-to-day weeds with your people because you really truly love your team. You pour a lot of effort into them.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we always want is freedom, right? And most people, when you talk to them, they want the freedom from poverty, or they want freedom from a W-2, freedom from certain things, right? Instead of having the freedom to do certain things, right? And it didn't come easy. I mean, it took a lot of hard work, and it was like a 20-year overnight success, and it took a lot of disciplined actions and principles that I kind of honored all the time. But it gave me the freedom to now choose what I do every single day, and I choose to come to work. I choose to work with the people that I work with. And I always say there's three things in life you should never shortchange. You should really do a lot of research in. And Naval said it best. And it's like, look, it's who you marry, because you're going to spend a lot of your time with them. Where you work and who you work with, because you're going to spend another third of your life there with those people. And what mattress you sleep on, because you're also going to spend a third of your life there. and I'm just blessed to be able to have built a unit and a community here that's very similar to what I had in the military, and very similar to my upbringing, as an immigrant, and what my parents taught me, to having people around you that have that infinite game. And my parents, when they came here, they didn't have the financial capital, right? But they had relational capital, which, they came to a country, they were very young. All they had was some family. They had no phones, none of that stuff. And they just used their relationships to get into a new environment, a new country, new opportunity. And I had a first, row seat in seeing that, and what my dad and mom were able to achieve, getting their citizenship over a 20-year process, seeing my dad work multiple jobs and work towards his financial independence, which was way different than mine is. And at the same time, going into the service and operating in a unit where, you had to silence a lot of the noise, and really be in the same kind of frequency as the guys that were with you, because they're the ones that were going to pull you out of a bind or get you out of trouble, or really keep you alive, right? And so now moving forward, I created that same kind of atmosphere in my real estate business, where we're all on the same frequency. We all quiet the noise for one another. We stay focused on the long-term vision and the long-term plan, and we just march forward, and we have a lot of fun doing that, man. I'm more of like an architect of others, and my job is to continue to grow my world, so that way they could continue to grow their world and achieve their goals and dreams within what we've built. And in order for me to really do that, I need to build them, and also continue to grow myself, continue to chase fear myself, continue to evolve as a leader, so that way I keep uber talented people with me. And it goes back to, that expression that says, you build people so they're good enough to leave you, but build a culture that keeps them with you.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great quote, man. You have 4 businesses. I saw in your bio. I didn't realize you had 4. How do you operate that much? Because that many things going on at the same time. I'd love to dig into what those are and how you've managed to keep all of that straight and keep all of it going in the same direction. Because you've been at this for a long time, so you've been consistently successful for a really long time. And I know, having owned multiple businesses, that's not easy at all. It's really hard to have that split focus. I'd love to learn a little bit about how you've done that, and how you kind of do that now.
The beauty of what I'm doing is like, it's a spoke, right? It's a hub, and there's spokes come in. And fortunately, all my businesses are around that real estate industry, so they integrate really well. As when people are building, it's not what you say yes to, it's really what you say no to, and chasing the right thing. So in order for me to really build out what I built out so far, whether it's my investments, whether it's my businesses, whether it's my real estate practice and all that, is I just have to say no to everything else and be very purposeful with what I'm doing every day, right? So, and whenever somebody's chasing something with great discipline, that means that they're saying yes to only 1 or 2, 3, 4 different things. Their priorities are very much in line, because they're saying no to everything else that doesn't fall in line with that. So I have a very clear vision of what I want my future to be, like my road to 100 million. It's very clear for me. And I use that as a filter to what I let in my life, the relationships I let in my life, what I do every single day. And that's really the only way I could run the businesses so efficiently. But fortunately, they're all intertwined. Whether it's a real estate, you guys are in the real estate businesses. There's a project. I'll tell my wife, it's like, there's a project I have right now that's 72 units that would probably melt somebody's face and brain. Right? It's like it's just such a heavy lift, and so we tend to constantly keep evolving and dealing with harder, better by just being more effective and efficient with our time. And again, it goes back to some of the lessons I learned in the military. It's like, look, how do you keep yourself calm? How do you quiet all the noise? So in the military, we used to say the guys that can't silence the gunshots are the ones that are going to end up in body bags, right? Or you end up getting yourself killed or getting your guys injured, though to be casualties or fatalities of war. And what I mean by that is because, as you go into more hostile environments where you're kicking the door down, clearing a building out, in a situation that's a little higher hostile, you got to rehearse that and practice that a lot. And you got to be very clear with what the next step is always going to be. And if you go into an environment where gunshots are going out, the first thing you want to do is freeze, right? You stop, you look. Well, if you do that, then the next one's probably going to come towards you. You have to really rely on the guy behind you and the guy at your 12 and your 6 to continue to move forward in the manner that you've trained and silence those gunshots and keep moving and have trust with the guy in the back and in front of you so you could accomplish the mission and come back alive. And a lot of that is silencing those gunshots and having faith that the guys with you are in the same frequency with you. Just like my people around me, they all know what the mission is. So when I see them distracted, when we see each other distracted, we say, hey, keep moving, go, silence those gunshots. And so what is that? It's like social media, news, elections, COVID, political shit, right? And it's like, look, it doesn't really matter. It's like, it's just, what's our mission? What's our goal? Let's keep aligned with it. Let's silence all the noise around us. Let's run on our own frequency and keep moving forward towards our vision. And so a lot of the experiences I had as an immigrant, like my parents as immigrants, and what my dad silencing all the noise around him, he moved into a very affluent neighborhood, saved all the money he had. And, but yet he never got tied into prioritizing what was important to the neighbors. Like he didn't give a shit that he drove a 1980 Toyota pickup and the neighbor next door had a 2000 or a 1995 Hummer brand new, right? He didn't care about that. He knew his vision was clear enough to where he wanted to take our family. He didn't care what other people thought. He didn't prioritize other people's wants and needs for him. He prioritized what was important to him, and he just quieted everything else society thought should be important to him. And so that's really the only way I could run my business is just, taking some of the lessons as watching my parents come to the US and struggle through that, not learning English until I was 10, going through the service and then getting those experiences and then running my business now. So I feel like my life happened for me and it primed me to run the business the way I run my business right now and the way I run my life right now. It's just through some of the experiences that came through just my involvement as a human being.
I love that, man. What was your kind of trajectory? Was it up and to the right? Was it bumpy? Have you seen like a hockey stick over the past few years as you've really kind of come into your own? I'm curious because you've been at the game a lot longer than I have, and I'd love to learn like how that's been for you.
Yeah, I think we also host the 728 show, which is a members only GoBundance show that you guys have both been on. And you see, it's never just straight up. It's usually a hockey stick. It's all straight across, and then eventually you have this opportunity to level up. And so it was never really sexy for me all the time until really it gave me an opportunity to double up my assets. But it was a 20-year process. Like for me, it was detaching myself from money, detaching myself from the need of certain things. And I remember when I started my business, honestly, I started it out of fear. I never thought I was that good. A lot of it was maybe some of the labels I had, not knowing English until I was 10 and getting put into special ed programs where, I couldn't really articulate myself. So I had to prove myself by actions and works. And so, I took that into sports. I took that into the military. I took that into my business. And as I was getting some success in my business, like I honestly didn't think it was going to last. So I'm like, look, I need to be a really good steward of what I'm making. So I put myself on a salary, my wife and I on a salary was like $110,000 a year, which was $6,700 net a month because we paid ourselves. I paid myself W-2. And the rest of my income, I invested into my business and I invested into assets. And the good thing about that is over time, my portfolio went from buying 1 or 2 properties a year to buying 3 to 4, and all of a sudden buying these larger real estate portfolios. So it wasn't overnight. It was a lot of consistent gains that it gave me an opportunity around 2017 to level up my assets, sell half of my real estate portfolio, which I had here in California, and then buy more commercial and larger properties, which then it became really sexy.
Do you still have fear in what you're doing? And I guess the only reason why I'm bringing it up is like, if anyone who's listening to this, is that there's always going to be fear. There's fear around everything that we do or undertake something that's going to intake something that's going to require us to level up. I know I have fear, and I just want to talk to you about it. Do you still have fear in what you're doing in your endeavors that you're going throughout in business and monetarily with what you're doing?
I think fear is the fee you pay, right, to step into bigger rooms. And, we talked about this on the Scale podcast back with Abundance, and we talked about the 4 C's of growth, which commits to like, hey, look, I'm going to commit to a certain goal, which means then the second C is courage. And you have to chase fear to earn that courage. You can't just, you have to chase some form of fear. But then if you really chase that fear, you find out, okay, am I really capable at this skill set or this business or this investment? And then you're like, once you find out what your capability, you take it to capacity. And now the capacity is a thing that you're like, okay, how long am I going to stay here? This thing's going well. Maybe I found my unique ability, my genius. And it's like some people wear like a warm sweater and that was it. They do that forever. But then there's a few that constantly keep chasing that fear and keep evolving and say, okay, I'm going to commit to the bigger version of myself, which means I have to slay the dragon. The person that got me to where I'm at today is not going to be the person that's going to get me to where I'm at. And that's a hard thing to do. Like there's a person that maybe it was 10 years for you to earn that capacity. And then you have to put a gun to that person's head and say, look, thank you so much for getting me here. I honor you. I thank you. I'm only going to keep the best 20% of what you bring to the table. The rest I'm going to reinvent in this new level of courage. And then you find out what your new capability and capacity is. Dan Sullivan says that a lot with his teaching. And I think as we continue to evolve, as you're on your route to 100 million, you'll see it many, many times. I think I've gone through those 4 C's about a half dozen times, and I'm going through it right now, and I'll probably go through it in another 3 or 4 years. And my job is to continue to keep chasing fear. And that's how really the only way that you're going to keep really successful and good people with you, because they're going to see you constantly growing and expanding. And you're not just going to settle and then just say, hey, look, I'm good. This is where I'm at. And as you continue to grow your wealth, they always say, wealth is worth the weight of the delayed gratification. Cody, you asked me earlier, like, was it easy? Was it hard? No, dude, it was a long time. It was worth the weight of me building it and the delayed gratification. They say a man's wealth is the ability to live without. Like I went without so I could invest in this big thing. But it's also worth the weight of the responsibility that it bears on you. And that's something that we catch on a lot of those 728 shows that like, man, guys will grind and work and work and work. And they're worth 2 million, 3 million, 4 million, 5 million. They're like, dude, I thought it was going to get easier. It's not getting easier. Like, what's going on? It's like there's a weight of that economy that you're building around you. You just have to do that better and keep growing and being more efficient and effective in what we do with a lot more grace. So that's that's something for me that I always look at as like, look, how am I chasing fear? I homeschool my kids. So we've been homeschooling our kids for 5 years. That's scary. But again, I know what my outcome is for my kids, and I have to make sure that, it's from what I'm doing, it's not going to make sense to society, but it doesn't have to. I run on my own frequency, and I have a vision for my kids and my family, and I need to make sure that the principles that I instill in my kids are going to withstand the pressures that society is going to put on them. I know that, right? There's a responsibility that my kids are going to have too, and opportunities with what I built. Then I need to make sure that they have a strong back, a big heart, and calm mind, that they're humble enough to be able to serve in a capacity with the opportunities that they might have. And so that doesn't make sense for a lot of people, but we've done a lot of cool stuff with my kids, and I try to teach them that as well. Like I had my 10-year-old son, we've done a lot of missionary work. So we've gone to like Haiti and have done a bunch of different things that we probably, looking back, I probably shouldn't have done because it was kind of dangerous. But at the back point, like I also had my son that's 13. When he was 10 years old, we were in New Zealand, and he jumped out of a plane with me at 10,000 feet, right? It's like, who does that? Like I got him to chase fear, and he's like, now he has a reference point. And this is the same kid that was going downhill mountain biking in Yosemite National Park with me and shattered his collarbone in 2 different sections. Now he has a plate and 10 screws, right? Again, he has another reference point. And the cool thing about life, man, and what we're building right now, and the question, like, do I chase fear, is sometimes when you're chasing fear and you're earning your courage, you're going to get hurt, right? You're going to find that dark spot. You're going to find your limit. When I raced Ironmans, man, that's what we did. We trained to find the limit. So that way we knew what our body, what our mind, what our heart was going to do when we found that limit. And sometimes you find it and it's like, shit, how did I respond? How can I do better with that? And so those are the kind of lessons that I'm trying to also teach my kids. And so that way they have reference points. And people use either their story, their upbringing, as like for me, immigrant family, or maybe my time in service, or my time as an entrepreneur, failure in business, or something like that. And some people use that trauma and they'll reside in it too long. Right. Where my son could say, okay, look, I'm going to reside in the fact that I got injured. But instead of residing in it, he just uses it as a reference point. Right. It's like you want to evict yourself as fast as you possibly can out of that situation. And again, it's a reference point of growth. And that's the powerful thing of constantly always chasing fear to get better and find that new level of capacity for yourself.
Yeah, that's amazing. So well put.
I love how zen you are about it. That is crazy. That is a zen level. That you're a Buddha master.
Yeah.
He really is. I want to ask you this too, Cody. How do you process your fear? How do you step into your fear? How do you conquer your fear?
Man, I am not nearly as zen as Daniel.
No. No.
Daniel's interviewed me before, but I actually don't feel like I've had a great opportunity to get to know Daniel. So I'm super excited about this interview. And now I really, it's fun to see how special you are. You know, I don't know. I mean, I experience fear all the time. I think I experience a fair amount of fear of loss, especially coming from like very little, you know, and building up so much that I experience like a fair bit of fear in that. I've experienced, just like everyone else, a fair bit of imposter syndrome sitting with giants like Daniel next to us, right? But I don't know. I think that for me, it's usually about never wanting to, like, what I can't live with. I can live with fear and I can live with failure, but I can't live with wondering what if I had tried, right? Like, what if I had given it my all and actually gone after what I wanted? That to me is death. That to me is absolutely everything. And so I guess I don't know. I just face it because my bigger fear, my real fear, is that I won't have chased what I really wanted, right? And I won't have lived a life that I really wanted to live. And I will always look back and wonder, like, wow, I could have accomplished that, but I was too scared to do it. I mean, that wouldn't sit well with me. So I guess that's my own personal thing, but maybe it's driven by a bigger fear. And the bigger fear is like I said, just a fear of not knowing.
I think you said something super valuable too, Cody. It's like no matter what, I think there's going to be pain on either direction, right? It's either going to be the pain of making the choice. And you know what, man? In order to be free to do whatever you want, it takes courage, man. And it takes chasing something with great discipline and passion. Think about, like, I'm Christian, right? So like the passion of Christ, like, think about him. Like, he passionately died for his people. Like, suffering comes with passion. You chase it with that much passion, right? So when you really think about what you're going to do, it's like, look, if you have these big dreams and you're chasing this fear, you got to do it with great discipline and passion. And you have to understand there is going to be some level of hurt or sacrifice. But you either live with the pain of making the choice and accomplishing those things, or dying in the pursuit of it, or you live with the pain with the fact that you didn't, right? And it's painful either way. You choose it.
Yeah. I know you have an amazing wife, and then I want to actually ask Pasha the question, but I did want to ask, you talked about that grind. Was there ever a point where your wife was like, what is this crazy guy doing? And like, just go get a job? Or I always see you post amazing things. And it seems like you're super proud of your wife. She seems incredibly supportive. And obviously to homeschool kids, she's got to be an angel. But was there ever a point where she was like, what is this crazy guy doing? And
yeah, I think when you're blazing a trail, right? Like entrepreneurs, you guys are like, you look back and you're like, you see this trail of blood, sweat, and tears, and they're not ours. They're the people that joined us on the journey. It's your family. And so my wife is very much on the journey with me. And so for her, and this might not come out right, but hear me out with it. My wife is very submissive to my vision and to my plan. She is the CEO of the house. She's super strong. Everybody knows my mom. My wife knows that she's a backbone. She's solid. But she's very submissive to the decisions I make. And I think the only way and the only reason why she would be submissive to the decisions I make is because she knows I'm submissive to our bigger future. I'm very clear about it. Like, she knows where we're going. She's the guy that has my 6 and my 12 because she knows what the plan is. And it might get hostile. It might be hard, difficult, but she will quiet things down for me because she knows that I'm out there putting the work to get our family ahead to what our dreams are. And so she also knows I'm not golfing and I'm not doing these other things. I prioritize my life pretty pretty well, and I don't let anything kind of get in the way of that. I say no to a lot of things, and she sees me make these decisions every day and prioritize our family every single day. That she's very submissive to the vision because she sees I'm submissive to the vision that God has in store for us, the wealth that we've been able to build the businesses that we have, and the fact that I am prioritizing our family and our faith and our businesses in a manner where she's never going to be left behind at all. Like I'm not gonna prioritize something else ahead of my family, my health, my faith, and my business. Right. So it takes a lot of communication with your wife for that to happen, because she was delivering babies when we decided to stay home and homeschool our kids. It's a big undertaking. She had to hang up that hat of like what she was known for, and now she is in a way the CEO of the house, which is an unrewarding job. Sometimes it's the kids don't, they don't show you what you want to see all the time. You don't get the awards, you don't get the paycheck, you don't get all the other stuff. But she understands how important she is to my life to keep things quiet and in order in my home front. And she's very much my biggest supporter. And my thought is like, look, I wouldn't be able to do half the things I do today if it wasn't for me knowing that she has my six, and she's also prioritizing our family and our vision just like I am.
Man, I love that. That is really beautiful.
This resonates with me so much. I mean, I think everyone knows that we're expecting twins here in November. And so, my wife is incredibly strong and independent. She is South Philly independent. I mean, and just a work ethic that can crush anyone. This effect that I don't know what was happen until we had these children that we're getting prepared for it, is that we're starting to come together, because we always lived like, hey, we're going to be two individuals who choose to come together every single day. And now we're realizing we're a family that needs to come together, and now we need to think all collectively for the family. And there's some shifting, and she's really foregoing everything that she's doing in business to become CEO of the house and to really take care of the family unit, which is just like, now we're all coming together. It's just this really strong bond that's happening for us, that I know you both have children, but for me, this is hitting home hard, and I love it. I love the fact that we're working as a team now and have this. And I agree with you, man. Our wives do not get acknowledged enough for running the kids and the household, because that is a big job, especially from an independent woman, to take a step back. So I just want to tell you that was awesome, and it just really resonated very deeply with me.
Real quick, Pasha, because we have to ask, right? What do you do to deal with fear?
I mean, I think, I've mentioned before, so I won't take too much time on it. It's just, I am so driven by my vision. Always. I always have a very clear 10-year vision that it pulls me into it. But, now that I've built this company and we have about, I believe 15 full-time employees now, it's like I have to step into it. I can't let anybody down. This is, and I have to step into it. But so I get pulled towards my vision no matter what. And at this point in my life, and I think it changes my relationship with fear, how it was with poker, how it is now. It's so different about how I approach it. I now at least have enough EQ to understand that fear and excitement is almost the same exact feeling. And so anytime I have fear, it's an instant subconscious trigger for me to say, that's what I have to step into. I need to be afraid of something that scares me so that I can go and do it. And let me go have another level, just kind of like Daniel was saying, let me go have a reference point now. And I keep impressing myself. There's some things that I've just been noticing about my own patterns of like, what really gets me driven is I get angry and I'm like, I got to figure this out right now. I get mad at myself and then I go accomplish it, which is like this fun. I was like, oh, this is that stage of that relationship of fear with me now.
I have a pet theory that every entrepreneur has some chip on his shoulder, something to prove a little bit. And maybe eventually we figure out that that's not like the end goal, but I think most of us get started.
I think you need something to launch you, whatever that might be. But I think a lot of it too, I see both of you guys and the way that you operate, and even this podcast, it's scary to get in front of the camera and the mic and ask the right questions and provide value. But I find that if you're overwhelmed with your present, or if like you're afraid where it paralyzes you, that means you haven't designed a future that's big enough, right? And I think that's what drives you guys to keep chasing fears, because you guys are very clear on what your future trajectory is. And people might see us say, dude, how do you guys do this? And for you, it's scary, but you keep marching forward, but you know the end result, the end goal. You see this in the military a lot, man. You know why you're fighting. You go into these buildings and like, fuck, it's scary. Like shit, like people put their lives. I mean, we just got done with Memorial Day. I mean, there's a lot of people who lose their lives for that, but the mission is a lot bigger. The country is a lot bigger. The people at home are a lot bigger. For you guys, it's the businesses that you're building, and it makes taking and steps into that fear and creating that calmness within that fear. It's like if somebody told you, like, I'm not afraid, dude, trust me, I'm afraid a lot. You know, we had a conversation with, gosh, why am I blanking on his name? The guy that killed Osama bin Laden. We interviewed him for GoBundance.
Robert O'Neill.
Yeah, Rob O'Neill. And he said something on stage that was like, look, it's okay to be scared. It's okay to be afraid. It's just not okay to panic, because panic will get you killed, right? And so, like, what are we doing every day to step into that fear space and do it with a lot more grace, right? So I see you guys building what you're building now. I see what you've done with your funds and your investments. And I guarantee if you take either one of your guys' investments and present it to somebody, they'd shit themselves, right? But like, you're okay with that because you understand where your vision is. You understand it's going to take fear to learn that there's a difference between communicative knowledge and revealed knowledge. You see it in Adam and Eve, right? Like, Adam had revealed knowledge. God told them not to eat from this forbidden fruit. Eve had communicative knowledge, and look at what happened, right? You could read as many books as you want. You could listen to as many podcasts as you want. You could go to as many seminars as you want. But I tell you one thing, like, you could read that all you want, but until you put your shoe to the pavement and you start doing the work, revealed knowledge is going to show you something very different. And that's something that I think I see you guys do very well. So, and you guys do it with a lot of grace.
Thank you. You know, it was your show that made me talk about my story more. I've always been pretty private. It was a 728 show that you guys got me on that I didn't want to do at first. It took some convincing. And then I was like, oh, wow. Like, you know, this was cool. Like, people actually benefited from this. And like, if I could be of some service to anybody else, that was great. And then it was just, I think it was some other thing that I presented on when I was there about like one of my losses, and that was cool. And then it was like, hey, Cody, we should do something together. And it really was that 728 show that sparked this all for me. So thank you again for that.
That's crazy. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So thank you, Daniel. Pasha hit me up and he's like, we should do a pod together. And I was like thinking about doing a pod, and I didn't know it came from that.
That's awesome, man.
What was your inspiration for the 728? You know, I think that's a really big trademark of GoBundance. I know it's probably the most loved show there, but what was the inspiration? Why'd you decide to do it, and what do you get out of it?
I think a lot of it was a conversation with some of the entrepreneur guys that we have. And you're sitting in a room full of guys that are, you know, multimillionaires and successful in their own light. But there's a stress that they see, like this lost stress in their face. And I think it's because we got sold a fake story, right? I remember like thinking, hey, once I become a millionaire, like I got the freedom to do whatever I want. And it's not the case. Like, it's when I say like wealth is worth building, it's worth the weight of building it and the discipline to build it. It's also worth the weight that it carries. And so what I found is, even though guys were worth $4, $5, $6 million, they never had, like, they always looked like, man, I thought it'd feel a lot different. You know, I thought that I would have more freedom. And it's like, it doesn't, like, my capital's tied up in a bunch of different things. I haven't realized, well, there's some guys like probably like Cody and guys that are in the tech business that their wealth is tied up in this business and it's unliquid, right? So they might have a $30, $40 million company, but other than producing income for them to invest and maybe some of the things they have on the side, like, it's untouchable right now. And all they do is they carry the weight of that business that's worth $30 million and the employees and the SOPs and all this other stuff. And so in GoBundance, we kept hearing these same stories. And so we're like, you know, what if we do a show called 7 to 8 Figures, meaning the hunt from 7 figures to 8 figures, Deca Millionaires, and the lessons that they learn, and see if we could find the common ground or the commonalities of these stories, and see if we could find at what point did wealth start gaining its momentum and becoming easier? At what time, like what point does relationship capital start compounding, and time and knowledge and wealth? And so that was the inspiration behind 728. And I was one of the first ones. It was private with the NorCal guys, and I did my 728 story. It wasn't even called 728. We just like, hey, look, I'm just going to show you how I leveled up my assets. This was like 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago, maybe. And I showed them, you know, the struggles that I had and how I sold my properties and how it looked before it looked sexy, and the gravitational pull of wealth started coming in, where I was able to compound my wealth and my relationships a lot faster. And a lot of the guys said, man, and they started seeing reference points. Dude, I am 3 years from exactly where you're at. And they're like, this would be amazing if we could get more stories like this and really get a peek behind the curtain on how wealth was built. And we did it with both of y'all, you know, where there was times, Pasha, where you're grinding tables, right? And it wasn't sexy. You're grinding tables so you could pay money for flips and rehab properties, right? Those are stories that are untold. Like, everybody wants to know about the 100-unit pad spot you just bought or the company you just sold. Like, we get stuck in that, and we don't realize that it's unsexy before it gets sexy, and it's work that it requires. So 728 allows the guys to connect some points and say, look, I am here. There's a story that we had with Michael Henanel where him and his wife were on the call with us, and everybody wants to talk about the exit in Buffalo he had. I think he had $30 million exit in Buffalo, bunch of apartment complex. And every time we were at GoBundance, he would be on stage talking about that exit. And so when we got on the 728, we went back in 30 years in time, and everybody almost cheered up on that call, because there was a point, and it was 6 years prior to that exit, that his wife had to go back to work to pay the bills because he couldn't make these properties work. He was living in Buffalo, while he's trying to get these properties to operate. He was learning his capability and his capacity, and nobody talks about that struggle, and we tend to struggle in secret. But then it also shared the story of how important it is to marry the right person and what they do to sacrifice to accomplish your dreams. Everybody wants to talk about his exit, but nobody wants to talk about what he did and what it looked like. And there's a lot of guys in our mastermind that are worth 2, 3, 4, 5 million that are going through the same shit. And this market's going to make people go through the same shit. So can we tell them and create a stage where they could get the stories of people so they can stay patiently disciplined in what they're doing, go a mile deep and an inch wide, and not keep chasing the next best thing because that's what they hear everybody talk about on stage.
I love that. There's an amazing Twitter account, a guy named Eric Weatherholtz, who I love. He's kind of an old coot in real estate. He's been doing it for a really, really long time. The other day he said real estate sucks for the first 40 years and then it gets real, real good. So yeah, man, I love the show. I tune in. It is the one thing that I always tune in for. I've kind of disconnected a little bit, just got busy in my own life. And sometimes you have like seasons where you can really dive into like the mastermind stuff. And sometimes you have seasons where you got to like focus on work, but I never miss them. And I think you've done just an incredible job with it. It's such a cool concept. And I think that it's actually kind of too bad that they can't be more public. It's great because you really get the raw stuff, but they're also just full of gold. And I know they help everyone.
That's why they're only available for 48 hours. Think about it. It's like the story's here and it's gone. Like you got to be present, right? To get the story. These guys and gals are giving you their life story in an hour 15 minutes. Like, come on, like be present. But we want them to be fully transparent. Whatever happens on 728 stays on 728 is what we say. But we go through income, we go through tax strategy, we go through losses, we go through struggles. I mean, Pasha, you said some stuff on our 728 that you probably never told anybody before because you felt the space was there for you to share that. And you also knew that in 48 hours, it was gone.
That was the only reason why I did it.
And it allowed you, and there's a lot from the guys that also are on the show. We don't take as entrepreneurs and as guys that have built these businesses or these lives that are, maybe we've interviewed guys that are worth over $1 billion. We interviewed Richard Branson. We interviewed Brittany Turner, which is, she's like a baby billionaire right now. Osborne, a lot of these people. We don't take enough time to discern and reflect on what we've built.
By the way, I love the term baby billionaire.
I know. I was just thinking about that too.
It's also good for the guys that also go on it. It gives them time to discern and really tell their story.
No, man, you've done an incredible job with it. I wanted to dig into a little bit of something that you said in what you submitted to on our forum. And you've mentioned it a little bit earlier as well. And it's saying no. And I love this kind of concept, especially as entrepreneurs, because we tend to chase shiny so much. And it's so easy to say yes, right? But you seem to you've really put that front and center. You mentioned it earlier. You mentioned it specifically on the forum. What does saying no mean to you? And how do you kind of apply it? Like, what's your filter?
Saying no is having absolute freedom to say yes to anything, right? Anything you want, but like having the discipline to not say yes to everything. I have it in my garage. It's praus. It's a Latin word called controlled strength, right? Having the ability to do whatever you want, but just deciding not to. And so the filter that I use is my vision, and anything that doesn't fit in that vision gets a no to it. And so in 2017, I think I got the Pillar Killer Award. They were giving awards out of GoBundance called the Extreme Accountability Award. And I'm like, what the fuck, dude? I say no to everything. Like I bow out a lot of stuff, but what I found is the things that I say yes to, I chase them with a lot of passion. I'm really focused on it. And what you're going to find is like, if you have this big vivid vision, and actually Ben Hardy's going to come out with a book right now called 10X is Better Than 2X. And he talks about this. He says that when you really look at the success, to chase success, it's not about saying yes to everything. It's saying yes to the right things and then chasing them with great purpose and discipline and mastery fostering that, right? So for me, I was just very aware of that. And I knew, like, back from my upbringing as an immigrant and my dad saying, look, it doesn't matter what other people think about us in the neighborhood. It doesn't matter. Like, you have to quiet that noise. The same thing with the military, with gunshots, right? It's like, look, it doesn't matter if gunshots are going off. Like, you have to have the vision clear enough where you go through these steps and you know what to engage and what not to engage. And it's the same thing when you're building a business and you're building an amazing life. It's like, it's the war is won not on the shots you take, it's on the shots you decide not to take. And that's something that you really have to get clear on. So how I know what to say yes or no to is by prioritizing what's important to me, being very clear on what my vivid vision is, and then saying no to everything that doesn't align to that. Pasha, you've been very vocal about your sobriety, right? That is part of your vivid vision. How many times do you have to say no to that, right? So your filter of what you say no to is what your end result's going to be. You're so clear with that if it just doesn't align, you're just going to say no. You probably decide not to go and hang out with certain people, or they decide not to hang out with you because you're not the guy that wants to party and get drunk anymore. So that principle, your principles are going to be your filter on who spends time with you. And you have to be okay with people not coming along the journey with you, right? So we're all weird dudes, man. I'm a weird dude. Like, I chase things that are like, dude, I'm like OCD when I chase certain things. My routines, my habits, the way I do things. I'm like, you could kill me tomorrow because you know exactly where I'm going to be almost every single time. I don't know. We need to have that focus to be able to say no to everything that doesn't align to it. And then you'll see that life is going to shed the people that deserve to be in life with you, because they're not going to understand your personality. They're not going to understand what you're doing. They don't see your vision. They're going to critique you. They're not going to join you. But then 10 years later, they're going to be like, damn, that dude did it. And they don't understand the shit you said no to. I said no to football games, baseball games, golf games, sports, all this bullshit. I quieted all that freaking noise, and I just honed in to what aligned with my future vision of what I wanted to build. And I didn't let society prioritize that for me, or the people that I wanted to impress prioritize that to me. And, I found that life, because like we started this conversation with the fact that when you see somebody walking with passion and purpose, there's a gravitational pull to that. There's a gravitational pull to the way somebody speaks, the way somebody carries themselves. You walk into a room and you're like, that dude has an anointing in his life. It's not that he has an anointing in his life. He just runs at a higher frequency because he's said no to everything that's underneath that frequency. And you just have to be very clear to what that future looks like for you. And you'll realize that there's not 100 paths to success. There's really 2 to 3 paths of great discipline that you could chase to achieve whatever you want in whatever industry you're in. You just gotta know what to say yes and what to say no to.
It reminds me of the conversation we had with Kevin Mills that was on the show about ranking our friends. And my number one thing that I evaluate in my friends is time, because of this reason, because I can easily be the guy, hey, says, I want to quit drinking, and I make that decision. And I'm absolutely the biggest promoter of everything that I'm doing, I've noticed, and trying to get everyone to come with me.
It's infectiously annoying.
I can't help it. I just feel too good by not drinking, and I just want to have every one of my friends do it. It's just kind of naturally who I'm a self-promoter of things that I know is good for us and will achieve better compounded results in the future, because I want some edge in life always. And so time is so important for me, because if someone can grow with me, because I'm with you, Daniel, if my friends can stay friends with me because I'm constantly changing and adapting to different things in my life, that means they support me, and that means they haven't weeded themselves out. And I really believe that friends will come and go. The ones that are meant to stay will stay naturally, right? And if it's artificial friendship on some commonality that is designed to change over time, that wasn't a true, deep, heartening friendship. And that's why time is the most important evaluator in my friendships.
Yeah, and I think you gotta also honor the people too. Like, there's guys in high school that I don't have anything in common with anymore, and I still contact them in a way where, like, but you have to be able to categorize them, kind of like I'm sure like Kevin said, is like, we just took a trip of people to Ariel BVI, and we had these sweaters made called vacation friends. And so there's levels of friends. Like, vacation friends are the friends that you go to vacation with, and before you leave, you're like, okay, where are we going to next, right? And you got something planned next. Like, you give yourself space. You don't, like, you're not overbearing. You're not like, okay, like, you don't, there's no pressure. They just get you. And then there's people that there's like dinner friends or weekday friends, weekend friends. You can spend a weekend with them, but that's just about enough. There's dinner friends that you spend an hour with, and that's about enough. And then there's 5-minute friends, where I got friends from high school that are are 5-minute friends. I still honor that relationship, but I control it. And they think I'm still very much engaged with them because I'm like, hey, a 5-minute call with them like once a month just to check in on them, right? But I don't let them guilt me into a week-long vacation with them because they're tying on strings and memories of the past, right? Like I know that they're a 5-minute friend. I still want to honor that relationship, and I call. I have some family members that are 5-minute friends, right? And so I still honor that. Like I love my family. I choose my friends, and so like if my sister or my brother or whatever, I call them and check in on them. So they think I'm still very much engaged. I'm not going to have them guilt me into a whole weekend vacation. They almost don't need to because they're like, man, that guy calls me and checks in on me for 5 minutes, and they feel like I'm very much engaged, and I am, but I'm not going to let them say, oh, hey, let's go to dinner and hang out and have some drinks, or let's go to the bar, or let's go hang out for a weekend or a week. Like you have to be very purposeful with the people that you spend time with.
Yeah. Something I've been doing recently, because I noticed that as the business grows, family grows, as we level up as entrepreneurs, we have more inputs coming at us. We have more responsibilities coming at us. And so we only have, or at least for myself, have so much like brain computation I can really hold to these things. And so lately I've been telling all of my friends close to me that, hey, I need you to be my eyes and ears. If you see me doing something that's a blind spot that I'm not even able to really compute or really pay a lot of attention to because I have all these other responsibilities, I need you to call me out. I need you to be the one to be like, Pasha, what the hell are you doing? And I want to breed that environment with my friendship groups because I'm going to keep growing. I know where my vision is. I know what I'm going to keep doing. And I really want to be told, I want that honest feedback from my friends. And I've been going on kind of a campaign on calling them one by one and say, hey, I need you, brother. Like, I need you to call me out. If you ever see anything that it doesn't align with my vision or doesn't align for me being the leader that I am, call me out and have that hard conversation with me. And I need you to do that.
I like that idea of sharing your vivid vision with your friends and then having them tell you if something isn't aligned with it. I like that. It's a good filter.
I force all my friends to tell me their vision. Always.
I actually got to work on mine. I've done it every year, and then this year I don't think I've redone. Do you guys revisit your visions every year? I usually do, and I think this year I haven't.
I do. I'm religious about it.
Yeah, I do mine like a 5-year vivid vision, and then I refine that 5-year one. And then my goals are so systematic and they're like so purposeful the way that I do my shit that I almost feel like I judge myself on my behaviors every day of whether I'm living if I'm honoring my vivid vision person or if I'm honoring the past, So I think it's so important for you to be very clear. And I even have friends that are very clear about where you want to be because they're the ones that are going to tell you, hey, Pasha, dude, like it's high accountability, right? It's like, dude, you're screwing up, man. You said you wanted to be a great father. You want to be a good husband. You're not acting that way. And you need friends that are strong enough and know exactly what you're chasing to tell you, hey, quiet that gunshot. Keep moving, dude. Keep moving. I got you. You're good, right? Like you need those people really in your life to keep you straight. But at the same time, that vision is always like, I always say, like Naval says, like it's not 1,000 or 10,000 times that you do things. It's 10,000 iterations. And a lot of it is that vision has to be so clear that you have to use that as a reference to what you do every single day. Most people are using their past as a reference, right? To say, okay, am I better than I was yesterday? Am I better than I was a week ago, a month ago? It's like, no, dude, am I honoring the vivid vision and the dude that I designed to be in the next 5 years? Am I honoring that? Am I getting pulled towards my future or am I getting reference points towards the back? Am I getting pushed up or am I getting pulled forward? And it's like the only way to really do that is to really live a life by design, have that vision clear, it's one thing having a vision, that's great, but faith without works is what? Dead, right? So you have that vision and you have to say, okay, what kind of behaviors do I need as a man? It's kind of like Atomic Habits to be able to honor that person. I want to have 1,200 units, say 1,000 units. Like what kind of behavior does that guy need to have? I want to be an amazing father. I want to be married for 30 years. What kind of behavior does that guy need to have every day? I want to be married to my best friend. I want to be my wife's best friend. Like what kind of behaviors do I need to have to do that? And I'm using my future, my vivid vision in the future as as something to pull me towards instead of running away from what I was.
Yeah, man. I love that. I think we're out of time, but that's such an amazing note to end on, man. I am so happy we got to have you on and you got to share your light with us and with everyone that listens, especially since having heard you do the 728 so much, but not actually get to hear from you that much. This was a real treat.
I appreciate you guys having me on, and I appreciate you guys being vulnerable as well on the 728 show and coming on, man. So I think Cody was a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, and Pasha was last year.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's hard not to be inspired around Daniel, man. I'm just telling you that much. So Daniel, thank you again so much.
You're just an encyclopedia, man. We loved having you on. Thank you so much. Can't wait to have you on again.
I appreciate you guys, man. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you, brother. All right. So that's it for this episode of Road to 100. Thank you so much for watching or listening. All the links and resources that we mentioned are going to be linked down in the video description or in the show notes. And depending on where you're watching or listening to this.
If you're listening to this on a podcast platform, then please make sure to leave us a 5-star review because it truly helps new people to discover the podcast. Or if you're watching this on YouTube, then you can leave your comment below and ask any questions, insights, or thoughts about the episode.
Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button.